Hello, beautiful people. Happy Gemini season. I am prepared. I have both feet on the ground right now, and it feels very uncomfortable. And if you watched the previous video that I just shared last week, you will likely understand what I'm speaking to. And if you haven't watched the video, I highly recommend that you do because that energy, which I titled the video New Moon and Taurus energy, reclaiming your safety, aliveness, and belonging, that energy is going to be significant for the next 28 days and beyond. And it's going to be very, very important to Gemini season, which I'm going to share in this video. So, what I'm sharing honestly is timeless. You can watch this video whenever, and I'm sure it's going to be very important and will resonate with you as something that you might want to pay attention to. And it's, as I said, it's really important. And so in the previous video, I talked about the significance of our root chakra, and we are in the space, the season of restoring our root chakra, which essentially means connecting to our body, so that we may feel safe within ourselves, feeling safe within our environment, trusting in ourselves, trusting in our decisions, knowing that our home, our safety is within us first. And when we tend to that sense of worth and safety, we will see within us, we will see that reflected outside of us. And that is going to be really important, as I mentioned as well, that Uranus is now in Gemini, which is significant to Gemini season, and it's significant to the next 7 years of our life. And with Uranus now in Gemini, there is going to be naturally disruption within our minds, within our consciousness, within our nervous system, our ideas, the way we communicate, our thoughts, and so forth. And that's really going to be highlighted during this Gemini season. And so it's really important to have a strong root, right? Have a strong foundation within ourselves to ground. And I mean, literally getting your feet in the bare ground, putting both feet on the ground as I am right now, sitting in a chair, which is really hard for me. But nonetheless, I am doing it and I'm being very aware. And so one of the things that I really am excited about, and I'm starting to notice it in my environment and even within my own perspective. And I'm just really, really giddy about this. And essentially, it is the experience of witnessing the science community, the scientific community, and the spiritual community essentially saying the same thing, like very clearly, directly speaking the same truths. And I have been hearing my mentors say that we will know that we are beginning to enter or align with, say, the new earth timeline when we begin to hear the scientific community and the spiritual community using the same language. Because it's funny, I will have people send me or share articles with me that are not necessarily super spiritual, but they're getting there. And they will share articles about scientists speaking about dreams, or scientists speaking about like parallel existences, and just the things that as spiritual folks are like, yeah, we already knew. Like, it's like the scientists are the last ones to the party. And with me personally, I have a degree in astronomy. I was in college and immersed in that specific community, and I always felt like the outcast. But then I always kind of felt like the outcast in the spiritual community because I was a little bit sciencey too, and I enjoy like the scientific theory and the process of the experimentation and so forth. And I do that in my spiritual practice as well. And so just seeing the two merge gets me really excited. And I love that I'm beginning to see it in my own practice and my own work. And this really brings me to the significance of the root chakra, and how I mentioned that currently collectively our root chakra is fractured, but it's also being stabilized by a lot of us doing the work. And it really starts with doing the work for ourselves. And so as we begin to see the scientists and the spiritualists using the same sort of language and speaking about the same aspects of existence and how energy works and how consciousness works, that's when we know like we're coming back into harmony, we're coming back into alignment, and we're going to see these little synchronicities and these pockets of that coherence. And you really want to do your best to feel into that, to feed into it, as that the more and more we put focus and energy into this bridging of these communities, the more and more we will create that experience for the collective as a whole. And so what I want to speak about right now really is with Gemini season and Uranus in Gemini. Uranus is the planet that destabilizes a system, right? It wants to shake up the system, disrupt what's there in order to kind of like get energy moving, right? And so anything that's been stagnant within our consciousness, within our thoughts, within our ideas, within the way we communicate, with the way we even utilize that energy exchange and technologies within that, whatever is stagnant is getting shaken up, right? And so we may be even kind of at a standstill with our ideas or with how we want to communicate and express ourselves and our thoughts and so forth. And so Uranus is going to be there to shake up the system. That's happening individually and it's happening collectively. And we're seeing this within communication. We're seeing this, with AI, even with like what's really real. And also it's like there's so many different aspects of information, of ideas, and even like the imagery of that, right? Because it's like it's hard for me. I've spoke about this before, I think, on my dream podcast, where it's like it's hard for me to even discern what's like real when it comes to AI pictures and so forth. Like I really have to like focus. And so we're seeing that. And so what this is doing is honestly, it's bringing us back to our ability to discern what is truth, our ability to discern the energy that's being communicated, right? The energy that's being exchanged. And so we are being guided to, one, as I mentioned before, stabilize our sense of being, our sense of self, our root, right? Anchoring us in the ground, because as we're even seeing the shifts in our environment as far as like the realities and like the distortion, but then also having these moments of like extreme bliss and happiness, like that swinging from one extreme to the other can really destabilize you in so many ways. And so our nervous system is really, liable to kind of go through like chaotic, like haywiring. I don't even know what I'm saying here, these words, right? But like it's very susceptible. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Speaking of words, right? Very susceptible to chaos and to just being ungrounded, and like unregulated nervous system sucks. It's not fun at all. And a lot of us are really experiencing that. Pretty much all of us. If you're not experiencing that, then somehow you're able to like disassociate, shut it off, or maybe you're fully grounded. And so what I want to speak to as far as the spiritual nature of what we may experience and the scientific nature, how it's all connected, is just, it's blowing my mind, right? And so when I started thinking about the significance of groundedness, of clarity, a sense of stability, and a strong foundation, in reference to even the energy flowing through us and how our ability to feel good within ourselves can help us to regulate, or will essentially help us to regulate our nervous system. This is super important. And I started thinking about my physics background, and I started thinking just naturally about circuits. And I'm like, having a grounding force in circuits is essential. And so in electrical term and physics term, the grounding of a circuit provides a stable reference point that allows the energy to move safely and predictably through a circuit. So we have our circuit, our nervous system within our body. And so being able to have a strong root chakra establishes our connection to earth and to the fundamental experience of safety and belonging. So what I'm saying here is that having a grounding force is significant to allow the energy to run through you, to flow through you in a balanced way, in a regulated way. And when it comes to circuits within physics and having that grounding force, the grounding force, that zero voltage essentially is also an exit point, right? For any excess energy, it can immediately go into the grounding force, right? And so if you stick a copper in the ground, right, that will be that grounding force, right? The excess energy that may channel through a copper rod will go straight into the ground and release itself and neutralize. And so when I think about this, when you're feeling, dysregulated, or, maybe you just had a long day, a lot going on, or maybe even if you're like me, you're just soaking in a lot of information, like all this, yeah, just expanded consciousness type, like things that really challenge your mind. And like, it's all here. So personally, I have this overstimulated crown chakra and third eye. At the end of the day, go outside, stand in the ground, channel the breath through your body from the crown and down into earth, and also visualize that energy from the earth coming up to the crown, right? And, spiraling up, right? So get that energy circulating through you with breath and feet in the ground. You can also do some yoga at the end of the night, right? Or do some breath work. You can also, like if you have a partner, maybe you can have a special moment of sensual physical touch. Like, it doesn't even have to lead to, sex. It can just be, that sacred touch, just to, with the intention to come back to the body, to come back to you, to come back to your center of safety, your reference point. So what is your reference point? What I love about like the spiritual perspective of the connection to earth, to feel safe and belonging, and to really feel that solid ground holding you. And in the physics term, having that grounding force, that reference point, to stabilize the energy and to release excess energy, so you don't have a live wire and just like a chaotic system. Both of those are speaking the same essential truth, which is that energy flows best when there is a stable foundation, when you have a strong reference point. Energy that has nowhere to go can destabilize the system. So again, what is your reference point? So that's something that I'm just going to leave here, that, we are going to be learning to create, to anchor in, is, your reference point, your grounding force for yourself. A lot of us are taking in higher frequencies, especially when you're listening to, maybe, hopefully, my videos, also listening to other channels and so forth, and just even connecting with nature, because honestly, like the planet, her frequency is rising, and there's so much happening on an energetic level. And so naturally, when you are curious, and I know you're curious if you're watching my videos, you are open to these higher frequencies. And so we're taking this energy in. And so throughout this Gemini season, that's going to be something that's important, is to really take time to, find a way that will stabilize your nervous system from now and moving forward. I recorded this on May 21st. So May 22nd is when Sun will align with Uranus. And so it's likely, as soon as the Sun entered Gemini, which was on May 20th, you begin to kind of get an idea of what is dysregulating to your nervous system. You probably already know at this point. You probably have known for months, if not years, right? But I think that it's going to be really in your face. And that ability to ground yourself, to find your sense of safety and security, is more significant than it ever has been at this point, because it's like we are experiencing a lot of change. We're experiencing a lot of distortion. We're also experiencing a lot of high frequency. And so I think I'm repeating myself, but it's going to be really important to find that stable ground. So it could be a yoga practice. It could be taking a walk. It could be just going outside for some fresh air intentionally at the end of your day, or just like some breath work, when you're feeling dysregulated. But it really is time for us to really pay attention and tend to our body, tend to our sense of being, tend to feeling grounded in this experience, right? We are here. You're meant to be here. Some of you, watch my starseed content, and this is very relative to starseed individuals because, again, you are opening your mind to these higher frequencies, and your galactic family is making connection with you, and they're going to be sharing information and energy with you. And so for you as well, it's really, really, really important to have that grounding force. Let me tell you, because earlier this week, I literally was feeling like floaty, and I felt very lightheaded. Just like in my head, it just felt airy and light. And it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, and I have been taking my time to ground, but I did go through a crown chakra activation this weekend. This weekend was really powerful as far as like the Schumann resonance fluctuations. There was a lot of solar activity, which we are in the cycle of the solar cycle of like max activity, but there was potential there was high potential for a geomagnetic storm that dissipated, but the energy and the fluctuation was there as we got close to that point. And so all of that to say, if you have been feeling just like kind of lightheaded, you've been experiencing headaches or really tired, it makes sense right now with all the energy moving through and everything also coming up to the surface with Pluto being retrograde in Aquarius, which is making interactions with Uranus and Gemini. Now we have the sun there. And so a lot of what's been, lying beneath is coming up to the surface, is being illuminated, and it is dysregulating. It is disruptive. And so again, what is your reference point? Also get clear of your baseline frequency. What do you no longer stand for? Like, that's an important aspect of the root chakra as well. It's like, what do you stand for? What do you not stand for? What is, again, what's your value system? What's your baseline? Like, that's also something that corresponds to your reference point and to your root chakra and your state of security. And so, yeah, with all of this in mind, I'll be sharing more about this specifically. But I'm looking forward to this season. It's going to be really powerful. If we play our cards, not it, I mean, it's going to be powerful nonetheless, but if you play your cards right, you are going to create this beautiful, system for yourself of regulating your emotions, regulating your nervous system. You can also utilize different herbal teas, herbal remedies, just have fun with it. And also, you don't have to stick to one thing, switch it up. Sometimes I'm doing yoga, sometimes I'm going for a nature walk, sometimes I'm in the front yard barefoot in the grass playing catch with my daughter, and that feels good, and that feels like just healing to my inner being, my inner child, and having fun with that and just having fun with my life. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. If you like my content, please subscribe. Please like the video if you like this, and I will see you in the next one.